Hi, this is Pete Lyons with Let's Play Salesforce. And in tonight's CRM analytics video, we're joined by not one, but two guests, James and Liv, who are going to talk to us about the new Customer Insights template. Now, it's actually been around for a little bit, but we've got some huge improvements that we're seeing in the Summer 22 release, which is going to be available in your production environments pretty soon. When exactly, I can't tell you because when this is being recorded and when this is going to be released are two different things. But with no further ado, we're going to do some quick introductions, then we're going to dive right into a demo. So do you guys want to go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Yeah, so hi Peter, thanks for having us today. My name is Liv Tornqvist and I'm a senior product manager at the CRM analytics team.
Hey Peter, James Quadros. I work with Liv and I'm one of the engineers on the app template team.
All right, well, let's have a look at what you got to show us.
All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at the Customer Insights app. Now, as was mentioned previously, this actually is not a brand new app. We released it kind of late last year, but as of the summer release, we've actually introduced quite a bit of more content. So we're looking forward to going over this and reviewing it together. First of all, just a quick note, this is something you'll have to create. So just like all the other analytics apps that exist out there, sales analytics and service analytics, you'll have to have the permission in order to create an app. So then you can do that by just going to Analytics Studio, selecting Create, and searching for Customer Insights. And it'll look just like this. Now, the idea with Customer Insights is it kind of gives you a 360 view of your data and really to help support you in analyzing, surfacing metrics and key performance indicators for your customers. But what's different about Customer Insights compared to some of our previous templates is that this is entirely built on recipes, which is something new. So the other change that you'll kind of observe as you look through the Customer Insights app is that we started to stray a little bit away from building really highly complex collection of dashboards. And instead, we're actually building out reusable components. So the idea here is that you have all the building blocks in order to put together a custom dashboard that looks good, and you can kind of cherry pick the metrics or visuals that work for your use case and for your organization. So let's go ahead and just jump right in. And first of all, when we create the Customer Insights app, you're going to get a few different dashboards. Now, what most of them will look like is like this. And as we mentioned, it is components. So these dashboards are basically just containers. They're component libraries. So for example, we have activity components here. We have two components that can be used. And I'll just give a real quick example of like how we actually use this, right? We wouldn't necessarily deploy this into production as is, but rather let's say, hey, I really like this, this particular component. I'd like to reuse this. I can literally just go into edit mode. I'm going to hit copy on my keyboard. So Command C, of course, Control C if you're on a Windows system. And then I'm just going to go over here and create a new dashboard. And for all intents and purposes, I'm just going to hit new blank dashboard. And if I hit paste, I can literally just drop that right in. And what's cool about components, you'll notice here that there's actually no queries tied to the dashboard itself, but rather it's a reference to the component. So as the component maybe gets updated, you'll actually always be able to get the latest and greatest version of that. And I can mix and match. I can pull components from multiple galleries to put this together. So let's go back to our activities gallery here. And then as we kind of continue to take a look at the different galleries that we have for Customer Insights, you'll see we've kind of organized them alphabetically up top. So if we go to the next one here, that's cases. We have a few case components. And again, components are essentially just like container. They're like mini dashboards embedded within. So you have all the same, basically kind of functionality in the dashboard designer when you put together or edit a component. The one nice thing is that if I were to go and actually, for whatever reason, wanted to change or edit this source component, I can do that. We do prompt you if you want to make a copy. So again, if we edit the original and let's say we make some changes and then 2 months goes by and we release an update, well, there's a good chance that those changes are going to be overwritten. Now, we'll tell you if that's the case, but it's probably safe to make a copy just to poke around. So again, just kind of a note there. And then if we keep going, this is actually gets to do the first thing that is new for the summer release, and that is lead components. So we've created 2 new lead components with the Customer Insights app, leveraging what was the existing lead data set. And we're actually starting to use, some of the newer functionality, for example, like the repeater widget that you see here, which is a really nice way to present tabular data in just a little bit more interesting type of format. And then if we keep going through the app, you'll notice we also have an opportunity components gallery. And this is probably our most robust as far as, we have 5 components here. Again, we are making use of, for example, the repeater widget, just to make it a little bit more dynamic and able to kind of glean some of that information just on quick glance. And then by popular demand, actually a few months ago, we brought in the OG waterfall chart from the Sales Analytics app. So it works exactly the same way, except now it is a component. So let's say you only wanted to pull over this waterfall kind of pipeline trending chart. Well, you can do that with the component. You can just bring this piece in and it'll work seamlessly with your dashboard. We also have a second page kind of behind the scenes where you can expand the details view. So again, being able to kind of drill down into those maybe specific buckets, you can do that. And then getting to our second new update here for the summer release, we've introduced some brand new components in the product with the product object. And this is actually a new data set for Customer Insights. We're creating a standalone product data set. And so really in order to do that, or the reason why we did that is because we wanted to be able to put a visualization together, kind of similar to what we saw maybe in the previous Sales Analytics app for white space. So, being able to see all of your accounts and product family, for example, and seeing, okay, where's maybe the gaps, where's the white space? And then, simple things like being able to see what's the product breakdown, by pipeline, with top 10 opportunities. And then what we've also done in Customer Insights, up to this point, we've pretty much just been creating this style of dashboard where they're galleries of components that are reusable, they're building blocks. But we also got some feedback, not only internally here at Salesforce, but also from customers that, hey, this is great and all, but what does a dashboard, like a fully completed dashboard, look like in 2022? So what we did is we put together a sales performance dashboard. Now, unlike what we saw previously, this is put together using standard queries. So you won't find components here, but you will see similar visuals, similar look and feel. And we've taken some influence from some demos that maybe you've seen before out there in the community. But the idea here is that we can address our same 2 personas, which is like a sales manager and an individual contributor. And let's say a sales manager goes in here, they at a quick glance, they can kind of see, where are we at as far as close one, what's our lead generation, who are top accounts, what about leaderboard, how's our activities tracking? And then for each one of these 5 cards or tiles, we can, of course, now drill down to reveal additional metrics, reveal global filters up here, as well as a details table. And we've done this, again, for all 5 of these little cards or tiles. And, we're revealing additional supporting visualizations, that details table, and 2, making use of some of the latest, functionality like this repeater widget that you see here. And then there's one more thing that we actually added for the summer release. Now, for those who have maybe actually installed Customer Insights already, you might have noticed that we actually provide a dashboard that is designed to be embedded in your account layout. So of course, you have to use the Lightning App Builder. You want to make sure and link up your dashboard filters so that we're passing through the account ID, so that of course when we open this and see, we're only looking at data for the current account that we're looking at. Now, this was existing, but what is new for summer is we've also created kind of a ribbon style dashboard to be embedded in the opportunity page layout. Now, this is maybe not like a traditional dashboard, but rather we're surfacing some of the more complex KPIs or metrics from opportunity history table or opportunity activity, and just basically putting them in one place. We're hoping that this is going to be, super convenient for administrators. And there's some calculations, of course, happening behind the scenes here. So, for example, how much has the deal changed as far as the amount field? In what direction has it gone up or down? And we indicate that by a % difference, either green if it's up or red if it's down. How old is this? How long has it been in the current stage? Are there any escalated cases on the account? How many times has maybe the close date been pushed out? So again, just trying to surface some of those metrics to make it a bit easier to get a quick overview of where are we at, for this particular deal. So that's kind of a quick overview of what customer insights looks like, how it's a little bit different than some of our previous apps. But there's actually one other thing that makes customer insights different. Like we mentioned, this is built entirely on top of recipes. But what we might mention here is that for again, those folks who are familiar working with like the sales analytics, service analytics app, you're used to this monolith or this massive data flow where you have to side scroll for miles, to find a node or, trace a particular transformation. What we've decided to do for customer insights is actually break that up a little bit. And so what you'll find here is that depending on your org configuration and what data you have, you will receive up to 5 different recipes. So for example, I'll just show very briefly here, like the user recipe. So this takes care of, all of the user transformations that you would want. So this includes the hierarchy, making sure that we get that properly brought in and flattened. Now, if we go back over here to, let's say, the opportunity recipe, we're performing kind of the equivalent, of like an edge mart. We're referencing or pulling in the user data set and then joining or augmenting it here to the rest of our transforms. Now, just because a recipe is a named opportunity, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the only data set that's being generated. So as you can see here, this is where we generate the account data set, the opportunity, the product, the line item, and opportunity history. But again, our goal here is that it's a lot easier to edit these recipes, to pull in your custom fields, your custom objects, because again, it's split up. It's just a little bit easier to manage. We try to add descriptions. We are looking to actually create some definitions here, on the roadmap, so that you know exactly what action is being performed for each of these different transformations here. But again, we're very hopeful that this just makes administrators' lives a bit easier to edit, to go in here, make changes, rather than spending a whole bunch of time trying to reverse engineer very complex data flows. So that is again just a quick overview of the Customer Insights app, as well as kind of what's new for the summer release.
Wow, that was a great demo. Thank you so much, James. I just love this, like the use of the repeater widgets and the fresh new look of all the dashboards. And I just wanted to complement what we just saw with a few extra items. So I'll just go ahead here and share my screen. So I just wanted to highlight, first of all, that in the summer release, we will be able to, when you go into Analytics Studio, you now also have the opportunity to see the components directly from the studio. So all the beautiful components that James just showed us are accessible directly from here. So you can see what components go on the dashboards of the Customer Insights app. And you can, if you want to go and change something or make it your own, swap out a dimension perhaps, then you could just go in here and quickly find it and swap that out, and it will be represented on all the dashboards that have this component on them, or you can make a copy and then use that in your own tailored dashboards for your organization. And as I also wanted to highlight that, as James said, this is a template based on recipes, modular recipes. Only the recipes will be available that matches the shape of your org. So if you don't use leads, they will not be installed, and these data sets will not be made, so that we can ensure that it's only the relevant data and data sets that get created. But if you, as I have in this demo, have done some customizations to your Salesforce org, which we know is very, very common. So if I go into the object manager here, you can see that I have several custom objects here. And for instance, if I go out here and look, search, I can also show that I have, for instance, added a project custom object here. If I go to my opportunity object, I can also quickly show you that I have added a competitor field here. You can see it already here. So it's a typical org. I have custom fields, I have custom objects. And what we find is that with recipes, it's just a lot easier to tailor these like pre-built recipes to fit these customizations. So again, I just wanted to open the opportunity recipe from the custom insights template that James just showed. And here we can see that I have, using this add input data, I have dragged in this project custom object, and I've joined it to the account field so that now I can also analyze on project and also on the opportunity data set here. If I bring it up, I can go in here and I have, again, just adding that field from the add input data. I can go in here and find the competitor field. And then after I've saved and run the recipe, it's available to me in my data set, and I can go ahead and tailor the dashboards. So those were just a couple of extra things about the custom insights template, and I hope that everyone will go ahead and try it out and let us know what you think.
All right. So first, I want to call out, this is a really cool shift from traditional template design, where a lot of templates, sales analytics is definitely like the flagship template. It's my opening move with any organization that leverages opportunity pipeline in even a remotely standard way. And templates are an excellent way to get up and running quickly. And I really like how this is much more modular and component driven. And oftentimes when we implement sales analytics, we go through a refinement process where we say, we like this dashboard, we hate this dashboard's not relevant for us, so we need to update this, that, and the other. And a lot of times what we end up doing is taking several different dashboards and consolidating them together and having those components that we can kind of like bake your own. Very nice. And also, a lot of times it seems like embedding is kind of almost like an afterthought, where this has much more of an embedding first kind of mindset to it. Now, one thing I do want to get some thoughts around. We are entering the autumn of data flow's life, and so I do appreciate that this is a very recipe first, kind of thing. My understanding is, with the exception of the Einstein Discovery templates, this is actually the only thing running on recipes at all, and that everything's still data flows. And it's going to be up to clients to kind of move that over. So in the interim, I generally recommend, if you have a lot of different data flows and you want to be able to run them hourly, you're probably going to want to consolidate those. By contrast, you've taken an approach of having everything kind of compartmentalized and separated it out. And while that makes it much easier for the admin or developer to come up to speed with what all of these moving pieces are, instead of giving them like a 400 node ETL script and saying, good luck, it does present the potential of running into caps, specifically around the 60 runs per day. So do you have any recommendations around best practice for, how to keep your org running healthy? And, or if users wanted to increase their performance and efficiency, what they could do?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great question. I think first and foremost is orchestration, right? There's lots of, features on the platform that can kind of help in this way. So specifically, right, thinking about, how often does this data actually need to be refreshed? Like what's the expectation? Take, for example, in the context of sales, like, does your case data, really need to be refreshed every hour? Probably not. And then same thing with like maybe the user recipe, like how often is your organization gaining or, losing users? Well, probably not super often. So that doesn't probably need to be scheduled, every day. right? Let alone every hour. But maybe more critical data like activities or opportunities, maybe that is something you definitely want to schedule and run several times a day. Now, if that's the case, of course, introducing like you were saying, Peter, maybe you have existing data flows, and maybe you're already kind of running up against the current limit of 60 runs in a 24-hour period. Well, definitely make use of queuing, right? So kind of think about when your business hours are, start the data, or start the recipe schedule, slightly before that, and then stop it, toward the end of the day. And that's going to really conserve that limit a great deal. But yeah, again, it kind of is going to depend a bit on each organization, their configuration, their SLAs and their expectations on refresh time. But just planning and orchestration and really understanding like how often does this data actually need to be refreshed is going to be key for that.
Yeah, and I really like that approach because there's a much lower skill entry point to orchestration than there is to data flows and recipe development. And if the answer is, well, if you need it all to run hourly, you're going to have to combine it. Well, then you're going to have to know how to combine it. But by contrast, looking at it from an angle of, well, how often does your user table change? Let's handle that in a different fashion from how often we need more highly transactional, like where real time is more of a factor. I think that's a very good approach because it's much more, it's much more thoughtful and business focused, and much less roll up your sleeves, write some code, and see what you can do with it. Exactly. Next question I had, and this is more just like a nerdy trivia kind of question. I'm under the impression that the templates team is one of the few teams that is not truly tied to the release cycle. Now, obviously, we're doing a new release coverage, so my returning viewers understand what this means. But for anybody who's just dialing in for the first time, Salesforce has 3 annual releases: the summer, winter, and spring. If anybody tells you that there's an autumn release, it's probably Steve Mo trolling you. But these typically happen every 4 months, and there's a 2-month window before that where first we'll see it in sandboxes, and before that even we'll see it in GSO. Now, normally, if you need a feature, it's going to have to wait for one of those things, but you guys have a little bit more latitude. So how does that work? And what's kind of the decisioning behind why you choose to adhere to the release cycle, even though technically you're not tied to it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. And you're right. So our particular team for templates, we kind of sit on top of the stack, which is a really awesome place to be because, like you said, we can technically release new components, new features, new visuals, really technically at any point. Now, again, we choose to kind of go along with the release cycle, and we will do our best to add significant updates or changes or improvements with each. But take for example, like we saw just a moment ago with the pipeline waterfall chart, we actually just released that in the middle of the previous release. Because there was the demand and we had the bandwidth. So we just went ahead and did that. Now in the future, we'll probably do something similar. We don't really have like a restriction, but we will definitely save the good stuff for each release.
So you have the agility when you need it, and you keep it in reserve for just predictability and cadence.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
And documentation, but I mean, we have thought a lot about it. And sometimes we also hear from the community, like, why can't you just, I need to get this compare table, or some of the questions that we see a lot in our community. And like, why can't you just drip it in, like, we can just get it. So maybe that's something we could take for the futures. I would say, like, comment below, comment like and comment below, YouTube style, and we can see what we can come up with.
So my next question is about future-proofing, because obviously our clients, they always want the latest and greatest. Your team's working really hard to make sure that new functionality is available. So if a new version of the app comes out, as a user, what can I expect if I've done heavy customizations? What should I be bearing in mind to minimize my amount of rework while still being able to capitalize on the new assets?
For sure, yeah, great question. So similar to how the apps worked before, whenever we push a new version, so we increase the version number, which triggers that little banner that says there's a new version available. Now we're trying to get a lot better about updating with detailed notes, like in that little release notes page that pops up, what we're adding. Now, just like before, if you were to move forward with that, we'll kind of show you a list of assets that maybe have been changed that are going to get updated. So you can kind of see ahead of time, okay, what's getting upgraded of these, what have we modified? And if that's the case, that's where you might potentially create, a net new version of it in a sandbox, or, maybe even in production, as long as you kind of tag it so it doesn't turn into technical debt and, we forget about it. But if you want to do a bit of a comparison, and that's why we talked about earlier when we go to like edit components, because the Customer Insights app is primarily based on components, you are prompted with that little, dialogue, like, do you want to edit the original or make a copy? So that's going to be, something that can help with that as well.
So the takeaway is always, don't just think about what you need today. Think about what might be coming in the future and how you're going to be best set up for success to again, have that agility of being able to change direction without having a giant monster of technical debt that you're dragging around. So my last question, and this definitely goes into into nerd territory. There's so many different aspects of the product, and I enjoy them in different ways. One of my personal favorites in general is data modeling. I feel that it's the best thing that I can do to make dashboard development easy is to build out really robust data sets. But I also enjoy, rolling up my sleeves and tackling just some really, why does this SACL need to be so complex kind of challenges. And an aspect of the product that I've never really worked with too much is the templating engine itself, how we can have a wizard that's going to look at different pieces of our org and determine what it actually needs to implement. So could you tell us a little bit about what it's like working on that in contrast to, as a dashboard designer, these are the sort of problems I'm focused on, whereas a template designer, this is how my role may change. Because I know a lot of our audience here is, they might be with ISVs, or maybe they're building their own templates for different business units within a large organization to roll out. But personally, I have nothing to weigh in on because I've never tried. I understand it's a lot more technical and a lot less clicks. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. There's a lot going on kind of behind the scenes once you go to create an app. So take, for example, we have tons and tons of rules. So when you go to create an app, there's like a pre-flight check that goes and says, hey, do you have opportunities? Do you have accounts? Now, in the case of Customer Insights, if you don't have those, well, you're going to have to go back and create at least one record in order to get Customer Insights. But for everything else, like for example, leads or cases, we have various rules controlling, what parts of the app you will actually receive. Now, I mentioned that, but with Summer, so something that we're actually doing now is what we kind of been referring to internally as like this friction-free installation. So let's say you have a relatively new organization, you're trying to stand up analytics, and let's say you have some opportunities loaded in, accounts, you have your base users, but maybe you don't have leads yet. Maybe you don't have cases yet. What we're doing is we're actually loading a sample CSV data set in place of some of those so that you can still get a complete view of what this app would look like when you get that data. And then you can reconfigure it to actually point it to, the real thing when it starts coming in. So that's actually brand new for Summer. If you were to go in like right now and try to create the Customer Insights app, and let's say you don't have leads, well, you just won't get the lead components. You won't get the lead gallery. But again, that's going to be changing in order to just kind of make that a little bit easier. So you're not wondering, okay, is this everything? Or is there more components out there as part of this app that I'm just not seeing? The other part to this is, on the note of just kind of overall development and customization, that was really a central theme for Customer Insights, because we know previously with some of our other apps, there's a lot of complexity, a lot of bindings, a lot of SACL, and it provided some, really awesome functionality. But, for those who've tried to like maybe reverse engineer or have to go in and edit it, well, that was kind of a blocker for a lot of customers. You almost kind of needed to be an expert, right, in order to do that. What we've really tried to opt for in Customer Insights is kind of shy away from the really complex SACL or bindings and really stick as closely as possible to the declarative functionality. We're kind of at a point now in the product and the different widgets in the dashboard designer, or even things like rich text and being able to pass through selections and results declaratively, where we can get away with that and not make overly complex, dashboards or components, but still make them, visually appealing and rich in data. So that's something that you'll definitely notice with customer insights, is that there's not nearly as many bindings or SACL, queries or steps as in previous apps.
And the exception to that rule being the waterfall.
I don't think we can ever get away from bindings and SACL with the pipeline waterfall.
I got a couple.
We had to get it in there.
I've always had a couple of thoughts on how we could do it, and it largely relies on the concept that we would need a query. We would need a query type that supported 2 dates, because it's a very common problem. Is I have a start date and an end date, create date, close date, activation date, deactivation date, however it works. And we can group our records by which ones have dates in a given month. But if we wanted to say how many records were between these 2 given dates in a given time period, I actually wrote a code example for this, for how to do just opportunity grouped by industry over a 12-month span using dashboard level SACL. And the query itself was so long, it took 2 or 3 chatter comments to post. And looking at it years later, I'm doing this windowing function in there, and I have no idea why, but it works. And it's kind of a challenge. So unless we get a new query type that would facilitate this, I don't see a future state where we're going to be able to get away from doing complex code to do something like the waterfall. And it's such a powerful visualization. I can definitely see why. Sorry, we're going to have a little bit of code here, because it's just such a huge value add. I find that sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve with only the terminology, like what's moved in, what's moved out, what's expand, what's reduced. But as soon as the business says, oh, well, we call it this instead, we just relabel that in the XMD, and now, oh, the lights go on. This is exactly what we've been looking for. This is why we bought these licenses. So I have 0 objections to that SACL, and I'm glad that it's found a home in customer insights. So that's all the questions that I had for tonight. I want to thank you both for joining. Wave goodbye to the audience at home. And for those of you at home, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and as always, thanks for watching.